Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Now today I would like to make a video response, and I wasn't actually planning on making a video today because I'm in the very middle of my working week, but I've decided to make a response video, so this is going to be a brief video and there won't be much editing unfortunately, because I don't really have much time. And then I will have a full articulated video like my normal videos at the end of this week. But the reason why I have decided to make this response video is because I have received two interesting comments in my last video that I've made. Well, I've actually got quite a lot of interesting comments, but two of these comments I couldn't really reply in a written form because otherwise the reply would have been too big. Now these two comments are comments from a neutral fellow and Tony Rav. So let's have a look at these comments very quickly. Neutral fellow. The quality of medieval mail was greater than that of ancient times because the forging techniques and bloomery construction advanced, as well as blast furnaces in post-11th century Europe. Your argument of arms and legs not being protected because of the shield is very bold, considering that the same argument can be used for the torso. In fact, the hands and arms are far more likely to be exposed behind the shield than the torso. Tony Rav. Totally agree with you. As a Roman reenactor, I can tell you that arm protections are necessary to avoid bruises and bad scratches. Alright, now first of all I'd like to thank you too for the good comments that you have provided, and of course you don't agree with some of the things that I've said, which is absolutely fine, but I would like to reply to this and show you why I think that the information that I have given is still correct. Now the first comment that you mentioned is the one where you talk about mail armor. Now before actually answering to this comment, I think it's very important that we see the exact terminology that we're using, because when we say Middle Ages, we're talking about 1,000 years of time span. So basically from the 5th century to the 15th century. So we're talking about from the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Those are already Middle Ages. Now, what you refer to specifically is High Middle Ages, but what I was talking about when I mentioned mail armor, medieval mail armor, I was talking about early Middle Ages. So that is completely different. So I agree with you that as many centuries go by, and to be specific, 600 years, and of course things will change. But still, when we are in the early Middle Ages, although it's already medieval times, the kind of mail armor that they were using was not that different from the kind of mail armor that the Romans were using. Also because, again, riveted mail armor, sometimes the Romans used even mixed mail armor, punched and riveted, and that, of course, it's understandable considering that they had to supply mail armor to big numbers of units. So having said that, I agree with you that mail armor will eventually improve, but I could not actually fit all possible information about mail armor in that video, because otherwise the video would have been 30 minutes, 40 minutes long. If you consider that I already have one video talking about mail armor, I haven't talked about all I wanted to talk about, and it's already quite long itself. So unfortunately, as YouTubers, we always have to choose what kind of information we want to give, but unfortunately sometimes we have to spare other information and use it for a dedicated video. And that's because unfortunately a long video is not successful in YouTube, so it's important to actually try to keep it short-ish, let's put it this way. So it's not a conference or a university conference, it's a YouTube video, so there are some parameters that we need to keep in mind. But secondly, the other comment, which was reinforced by Tony, if I may call you like that, is the idea of the scutum not being enough, or not being the primary reason, the actual reason for the Romans not using protection for the arms and protection for the legs. And we have the support of a reenactor who actually says, as we have read, that he has got bruises and cuts, and that being a kind of proof to consolidate this point. Even if you say that regardless of scutum, you still need to have arm protection and leg protection, the Romans still didn't use that. And we can't really use specific cases, we're talking about the Romans as a whole. For most of the time, the Romans did not use protection for the arms and for the legs during battle, and they still were victorious. Secondly, the fact that you as a reenactor, and I appreciate that you share your personal experience, I always love people sharing personal experience, but the fact that you as a reenactor got cuts and bruises does not mean that a Roman legionary got cuts and bruises, mostly because you're a reenactor. I'm sure you're a good reenactor, but you're still not a professional Roman soldier. A reenactor today, you still have your own job if you work, or maybe you're a student, I don't know, but a reenactor is just a normal person, a man of this time. So as a reenactor you have more experience than a person who does not know anything about weapons and armors, or has never wore them, but still you cannot consider your experience as much as the experience of a Roman legionary. A Roman legionary was a professional. They were training with scutum and gladius, which were twice the size and weight of normal battle scutum and gladius. So they were using that every day, and they actually had real battleground experience, which is completely different from fighting or sparring with other reenactors or friends. We're talking about fighting against a foe which wants to kill you. So all this perpetuated for many years, because the career of a Roman soldier could be very long. But even if we don't consider such a long span of time, for example, if you have ever practiced martial arts, and in my case I have practiced Kyokushin Karate and Taekwondo when I was younger. And when you practice martial arts, if you compare the very first day when you enter the dojo and you compare it to 2 years later, you will notice that you will have learned a lot of things. You will have improved your technique. You will have had a certain level of success. Perhaps sometimes a roundhouse kick actually hit the opponent, which is not easy to do. But that's, for example, going to a dojo for 3 times a week, twice a week. Imagine a Roman soldier after 2 years of actual marching with the armor, building structures and bridges and fortification, wearing his armor, because please keep in mind that the Roman soldiers kept their armors on even when they were working and felling down trees, for example, and then have actual battlefield experience, marching every day, working every day, being a legionary every day. Imagine how much more experience a Roman legionary had. So we need to consider that a scutum and a gladius in the hands of a Roman soldier, and that's why I don't think that reenactment, although I respect people who do reenactment a lot, can give us a full idea of what a Roman soldier actually did with his weapons and armor. So the fact that you got bruises and cuts doesn't mean that a Roman soldier did. And lastly, even if people had experience in the military, for example, and that's another experience that I've had because I was in the Sea Force when I was 18, and here's a picture. Even if you have experience in the military, so in my life I've had experience marching, and I've had experience having to learn the meaning of commands, of commanding officers and superiors. So using a scutum and a gladius is a completely different situation. In reenactment, I'm sure you hear centurions, people pretending to be centurions, screaming commands, but it's not the same as hearing actual centurions giving commands, people who did it for a job. Also, you say that the same argument could be used for the torso. Well, actually, I don't agree, because the shoulders, for example, are an area which could easily be hit. The left arm is not easily going to be hit because it's completely protected by the shield. The shoulders instead, depending on how you're moving, could receive strikes, and that's why you need torso protection. And for the legs part, if we just think of the Roman testudo, the testudo was the formation the Romans used as a reaction against missile weapons. And the legs are completely exposed. Again, why did they do it? I think the Romans knew what they were doing. It's very difficult to hit a leg of a moving opponent than it is to actually hit him in the torso. So better to have double protection, shield, and if something goes through, an armor on your torso, which is the big target, rather than having protection on your legs and your arms. I think that history proves itself. So, having said all this, I hope that this kind of replies to this comment the way I wanted to, and I wish to thank you for the respectful comment that you wrote down, and please let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.